I started playing Starfield yesterday, and I played a few hours. I thought it's awesome, dude. It's really a fun game, but my expectations weren't like so high like other people. So I think that's why I like it. And let's see what this relatively small YouTuber has to say.
I bring you a gift more valuable than gold. Another opinion on Starfield. I know there's already a million of them out there, but this one's unique. This one's not like the other reviews. This one's quirky and zany with a real nice personality and a big pair of honkers. It's my full thoughts on Starfield so far, so it is going to be a review, but it's also kind of an admission of my weakness, because I'm just gonna take the egg on my face here and say I don't think I'm finishing the game. Now
Dang! Well, I mean, I don't finish a lot of games. It doesn't say a lot, but probably means he doesn't like it.
Everyone says that the game gets good after 12 hours. I am just shy of that 12-hour mark, and I gotta be honest with you sports fans, I can't envision a world where I hit that 12-hour mark and a switch flips on, and all of a sudden it's exhilarating. It blows my hair back, and it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, thanks for that, bro.
I don't see that happening.
Dude,
but let's just assume that we are in a
before Starfield, I was playing Fallout 4 because I was excited for it. And there's a lot of similarities, like the inventory, the favoriting, even the button mapping. So I could see how people would be like, oh, it's just Fallout 4.
Fantasy dimension where that is the case. That still doesn't excuse the first 12 hours being miserably paced and excruciatingly uninteresting. Like, that is still a bad design if you have to invest 12 hours before the game actually gets good. So I don't know if that claim is just cope or if that really is true, but even still, it doesn't negate my feelings on how this first just under 12 hours experience has been going. You shouldn't have to put that much time into a game before it makes it worth it.
Well, I do agree with that, though. I think that whole excuse of, like, you gotta play it so long until it gets good is kind of a lame excuse for game developers. A lot of, like, weird MMOs do that. The ones where you, like, drop all your loot when you die and stuff. Everybody's, like, says you have to play so many hours to get to the good part, but then nobody plays it. So for MMOs, that sucks. But for games like this, I mean, you don't need other people, really.
And I want to be clear right away so there's no confusion. It's not because I think the game is bad. In fact, quite the opposite. I think everything in the game is good. But it's also extraordinarily boring and underwhelming. I struggle to stay awake playing it. It's like the cure for insomnia for me. I would rather be listening to my college professor lecture me on the Krebs cycle through Vimeo videos as homework. It would keep me more stimulated than playing through the main quest line in Starfield. And it's not like they've done anything wrong. The thing is, I went into this expecting, on this outrageous amount of hopium, that this would truly be an ambitious Bethesda title that would finally evolve their formula and push it forward.
Yeah, but how? What did you want?
But unfortunately, that's not what it is. This is the standard Bethesda experience that many of you probably know and love, but set in space. No more, no less. And you'll see that sentiment echoed across pretty much every single...
Okay, that's a lie, because the spaceship, you can fly it around. The space combat is crazy. You have like 3 different guns you can control with 3 different buttons. You can, on the fly, mess with the power of the shield and everything and like move it around to like all of that is like, I've never seen that in Bethesda game.
Single player out there. That's like the only universally agreed upon thing when it comes to this game. This is a very divisive game, but you'll find one common thread, that everyone agrees that if you like the standard Bethesda formula, you'll probably like Starfield, and I completely agree. This is the standard Bethesda formula. And for me personally, I'm just exhausted with it. Not because of oversaturation, it's not like they keep constantly feeding Bethesda titles to you, like shoving them down your throat every year like Call of Duty or anything. And that's probably why for a lot of people this game is so comfy and is so exciting to them, because it finally scratches that Bethesda itch that they've had since the last title.
Well, if you don't count Outer Worlds. Outer Worlds is like this game, but different, but pretty similar, I'll say that.
But for me, that itch only gets scratched if the game is an improvement or something bigger. Like, I wouldn't want to just keep playing the same game with a different skin. I loved the Bethesda formula a decade ago, and this feels like it's stuck in the past. This feels like it's still playing with fidget spinners right now. It just, with all of the hype and all of the claims that they were making about this game pre-release, I would have expected so much more than just being complacent with the exact same Bethesda experience that you're used to with a different coat of paint. Now, it's a beautiful coat of paint. I actually love all of the main locations that I've visited so far, and it's not like there's no new mechanics or anything. Like, the ship customization is super in-depth and really cool. The ship combat, I wasn't a huge fan of, but it's not bad by any means. Like, I think it's a good implementation. I would have liked it to be a little more fleshed out, but overall, like, it's still fine and super functional. There's a couple other things as well.
But it gets good after a set of hours. Because the beginning is the same rehash until a cutscene drops, then level changes and the dinos get... Which is awesome. I'm sure it is fun. Like, I don't doubt that what you're saying is fun, but why not start there, you know? Especially in this day and age with so much competition and like people's attention spans, like they know if they like a game in like 2 seconds. So you really just have to keep the fun going, especially in the beginning. But I can understand that, like, without that, a lot of stuff would be meaningless. You know, just like in an MMO, if you just get teleported to max level, like, what's the point? It's a hard thing. Game development is hard. People can complain about it, and then when you ask them what they really want, it's hard for them to say.
But I don't know if I can mention them because that'd be spoilery, and I'm not trying to just dump spoilers on you like a jump scare. But there are new things they added. But none of those new things are all that new, per se. They're new to the Bethesda formula, but they're very familiar with many things you've seen in many other titles over the last decade. That doesn't make them bad. Again, I don't think there's actually anything bad in the game, aside from the main quest.
Yeah, that's a good point. People don't really want what they want. Except for classic World of Warcraft. There's that funny video of the developer saying that exact line where it's like, you think you want it, but you don't. And then they make it years later and it's a huge success. And now even more, there's like another wave of success for it because of hardcore. So super egg on that dude's face.
A storyline. The writing in the main quest line is lazier than my summer book reports in high school. Like, it is kind of laughable at points. They really phone that in. It is some formulaic silliness. I don't want to get too deep on it, but...
I mean, it's not much of a spoiler, but in the beginning of the game, you don't have the big spaceship, right? Big whatever. And you get it kind of very easily, which I thought was weird.
That was the only thing that I think is, like, actually weak. Everything else is fine and good in certain cases. But somehow the game still manages to keep a neutral expression on my face. It doesn't make me smile, it doesn't make me giggle, spit up, and kick my feet in my chair or anything. Like, I don't get excited by the game, because I feel like I've already played this so many times with Bethesda. Like, for example, the engine that this runs on hasn't changed in a long time. So, during...
Yeah, I really thought they were using a different engine, but after playing it, I don't know anymore. It does feel like they just really retrofitted Fallout 4, which was a really retrofitted Fallout 3. So I don't know, man.
During the main quest line, especially, there's almost no facial animations for any of the NPCs, so it takes all of the emotional investment and immersion right out of it. Because you'll be getting great voice acting from all of these characters, but then you're looking at the character, you're having this goddamn staring contest where they're just staring a hole through your soul, and there's nothing on their face. Even when it's like an emotional beat, there's nothing. So it makes everything so fucking stiff. It's like all you...
I think what he's referring to, I know what he's talking about. And they do have facial expressions, but the eye contact, like, they keep eye contact for too long. So it's like their face is locked to you.
You can do is communicate with mannequins like it's I Am Legend. Like, if you're lucky, the extent of the expressions you'll experience in the Starfield main quest line is this.
Yeah, you see, it's like whoever made it was like, all right, lock their eyes to the player, but then they didn't think about, like, when people converse, their eyes, sure, they'll have eye contact, but not constantly.
And you are beyond fortunate if you even get that much. Because most of the time, and this is even outside of the main quest line, NPCs will give you the meanest stink eye this side of the galaxy's ever seen. If you talk to them or if you walk by them, they'll hit you with this.
Alright, he's kind of right.
Like, they're just constantly concerned, like, keeping a close eye on you. Like, it's like they're all...
Well, that's the tracking, too. Like, you know, like when you walk by an NPC and their head will kind of, like, lock to you to make it seem like real, like they're really watching you walk by. But it can be weird.
All fucking spies or something. Everyone's giving you the reverse Kubrick stare, and they all look like absolute psychopaths. I don't know if that's like a bug or what, but that is a very common expression that you're going to get in your playthrough, no doubt. Now, one thing that they are absolutely right about when it comes to the claims they made about this game is the bugs being much lesser than you're used to. There was a lot of hype around this being the least buggy Bethesda title. And so far, in my playthrough, I've only experienced a handful of bugs, and none of them are game-breaking. Like, there's no big bugs that I've seen on my playthrough, or even in any of the other playthroughs I've been watching.
Yeah, true. One thing I even noticed that they went out of their way to is, like, when you have a bunch of equipment on your back and everything, when you sit on a chair, it'll only hide what would clip through the chair, so it doesn't look bad and clip. Which is pretty cool, which is extra effort for sure.
So this game really is pretty light on Bethesda jankiness, which is great. That's really surprising, because especially given the scope of the game, I would have thought this...
Exactly. You know, everybody can complain and say what they want, but no one really makes games like this. And sure, we always want more and more, but who knows what's going on behind the scenes in game dev, dude. It's chaos.
To be by far their glitchiest one, but no, they put WD-40 on those squeaky wheels, and they lubricated it, they massaged it. There is not a whole lot of bugs here. So big W on that. And speaking of W's, there is some good writing outside of the main quest line. There is a ton of different things you can do. It's hard to talk about a lot of this without getting into spoilers, but there's a lot of different, like, factions and a lot of different side quest lines that are pretty deep and intricate. I haven't done a ton of them. I've only done a handful of side quests, but there are some that are far more interesting than the main quest line, significantly more interesting and better executed. Though I have seen a couple of side quest lines that a couple of friends of mine were streaming, and in one of them, it felt really important. Like, they exposed a big web of corruption, and there was a prominent figure that got outed for some bad shit, and once they completed the side quest, nothing changed. That character is still in the exact same position, so that whole side quest, even though you completed it, didn't really have an effect, which takes all of the wind out of the sails and makes the journey feel kind of worthless if nothing actually changes in the game. I don't know if that was a bug, or maybe they weren't done, but it seemed like they were, and they seemed to think that they were. So I don't know if that's commonplace or if that was like some kind of rare exception. But for the most part, the side quests are significantly more interesting than the main one. Now, let's get to some things that I think people have been misled by. And by far the biggest one, and the one that Starfield really put a lot of eggs in the basket of, is exploration. The go to any planet, explore. You can explore for thousands of hours. There's 1,000 planets to explore, and they're all fucking amazing. You're gonna lose yourself in here. You're gonna jack into the Starfield world, and you never want to go back to cringe old Earth. The real world is, you know, can't even compete with what Starfield's got. And man, that couldn't be more wrong. That is so far from the truth, it makes me want to spit.
Who really wants to explore desolate areas? And who really thinks that they're gonna fill all these areas? I just don't know, man.
I tried to do the exploring.
Like, what did you... I don't know what people want. Like, go play No Man's Sky. People aren't, like...
Really did. But when you explore a planet, like let's say you go to one of the main planets, and instead of going to the main city, you land somewhere else on the planet. my thought was, with everything they said, you could land on that side of the planet and then run all the way to the main city if you wanted to. So I decided to try the outlaw thing. I ran away and then I landed on the planet outside of the main city where you're allowed to do that with contraband. And I thought it would be really cool if I ran from there to the main city so I could keep my contraband, keep my ship parked outside.
Dang, and you couldn't do that.
And still continue the main quest while keeping the contraband and never going to jail. So I started running. And I ran for about 15 minutes. And it turns out you can't run from that to the main city, or anything like that on any planet, apparently. There's a lot of invisible walls, if you can believe that. Which is very...
Like, how close was he, though?
Very disappointing to hear. And during my entire journey, spent going across this planet, it was entirely fucking empty. Just rocks, flat ground, and a couple of space animals. And by couple, I mean one space animal type per planet from everything I've seen. And they just kind of stack them occasionally in clusters, so it feels like it's somewhat alive. And that's it. There's a couple of places you can visit outside there, such as like a cave that
I'm not as mad about this as most people are.
Has a little bit more to it, or like a very small little mining colony on that planet in particular where there's like 5 people and a robot, and that's it. There's nothing to explore. Nothing at all to explore from what I've seen, unless you just really love sitting in an empty open world with nothing to do. Now, there was a moment during this long, empty voyage here through the void where a spaceship flew in, and it was like a random event, some outlaws coming in. They parked, and I snuck aboard their ship, and I killed all of them. And the game has a cool mechanic where you can steal ships, which I think is great.
Whoa.
And I decided to try and unleash a bit of a galaxy brain gamer maneuver. I still had all my contraband on the ship that I parked way back on that planet, and now I just stole this completely fresh outlaw ship. So I thought, maybe I can keep my ship parked over there, and I take this ship to the main city, because there's no contraband here, so if they scan it, it'll be clean and I should be able to land there. I thought this would be a really creative way of getting around the scan and the contraband, while being able to keep it without ever being arrested or anything. But it turns out you can't do that. So I stole the ship, and what it did is it put the contraband from...
Oh, that's good to know. That sucks.
...my main ship onto this new stolen ship. And thus, the contraband was immediately alerted to the space hall monitors, the police force, and they came and they blew me up. So it just feels like, at least so far in my limited playtime with it, of course, since apparently 12 hours is the bare minimum before things really open up, that there's not as much freedom in this game as I was led to believe there would be, especially with the exploration. There really isn't anything overly ambitious about this game. Procedurally generated, soulless, empty worlds to explore.
Hey, just because it's procedurally generated doesn't mean it's soulless. I think there is an art to all of that.
Isn't fun. Like, yeah, there's a ton of planets you can go to, and that's cool, I guess, until you actually go there and realize how tiresome it is, and how not fun at all that component of it is.
Bruh. I just, like, they can't...
Which is a huge selling point of it. It's just disappointing, really. Now, another big thing is, this game is kind of like a loading screen simulator. Since exploration is so fucking awful, most of the time you're just going to be fast traveling around.
Yeah, like, what was it, Dead? No. Those roguelikes, you know? There's a lot of roguelikes that are procedurally generated, but it's not like a person just clicks a button and walks away. Like, there's a lot of parameters. It's just like AI. Like, the more parameters, the more you pay attention to it, it actually maybe could make way better, cooler things than, you know, in way faster time.
On this game anyway. So you're constantly going to be going from loading screen to loading screen. And on PC that's fine because it's quick, but it's just constant loading screen simulator anytime you're doing anything because you don't...
Yeah, Dead Cells. That's what I was trying to think of. Like, that game's awesome, and it's never the same path. Or, you know, exactly. And if it was, it would be much more boring. So, like, if you didn't have the procedural generated, it would just be like Outer Worlds or something, you know?
Really have any reason to explore or actually run there. There's just not a lot of interesting things to do along the way, so why not fast travel? So there's a lot of that, and another bafflingly odd decision is there's no real map. So if you go somewhere in...
I think it was Mass Effect 2 or 3, you could land on any planet. And it was a similar thing where it was just like desolate with like these little few checkpoints. But if you think about it, if all this was real in real life, it would be the same thing. Not every planet would be full of tons of things.
In the game, land on a planet, land in a city, wherever, if you try and bring up a map, there isn't one. And I don't get why. It's super easy to get lost because of that, when it was so easily rectifiable. Just put a fucking map. Like, it's 2023 and now we took away the map? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what's there is bad. Like, it's not even replacing a map, it's just there is none. What you can do is pull up your scanner and do like 360 degrees in circles to try and locate the interesting point you want to go to. Like, if you want to go to the industrial district of a place, you can pull up your scanner and then look around with your character and then see over there, and then you can run at it. But there's no actual map. So it gets very confusing. Like, pretty often.
This is a love-hate thing for me. I think no map forces players to be more immersed and not just like stare at the right-hand corner. I don't know.
Actually, until you really start to become super familiar with the locations. And another decision that's just... I don't understand why they wouldn't even think to include it, is there's no vehicles to explore the empty worlds. Like, if there was vehicles or a faster way of traversing them, I guess it could be a little more interesting, because then at least it wouldn't be a massive time investment of doing nothing. But there's no, like, Mako or anything. There's no vehicle to get you around in any kind of timely fashion. So it just makes it even more monotonous. At least there's not so far, and I haven't seen one from any of the footage I've watched from this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no vehicles. And unlike No Man's Sky, you can't just fly around your ship like above the ground on the planet. But again, it's... Go play No Man's Sky if you want to go to random planets and run around.
Any of the streamers, I guess it's possible that there is later, maybe, I don't really know, but even still, it is a huge oversight not to at least have something to make exploring a little more interesting and a little less slow. At least I feel like it's an oversight not to have something like that, because all it can do is improve the game by making it a little more fun to just get from...
I agree, though. Vehicles are always cool and better.
Point A to point B. But yeah, another thing, the combat is better in this game than most Bethesda games in terms of like how fluid and smooth the shooting itself is. Like, the gameplay is smoother, for sure. And the jetpack, I'm not using the jetpack in my playthrough, I'm doing a fucking caveman build, so mainly melee.
Oh, I didn't know there's jetpack.
The jetpack is cool from everything I've seen, and it has some nice perks that can make things very interesting.
Oh man, I really want a jetpack now.
So I do think Bethesda has polished off their...
Yeah, I guess it's hard to call Starfield an open world game, though, in all honesty. But to me, open world games, that's what they are anyway. Yeah, you can run back and forth and find these little random events, but then the game is much smaller, and I don't know. I think this is just like another Bethesda game with their same formula and everything, but, you know, a little cooler and more polished. Baby steps, I guess.
Shooting in particular here, so the combat does feel a bit more fluid, thanks to making it a less janky game than, you know, what we're used to from Bethesda. But that being said, it's...
And this game is like a crazy genius masterpiece in hiding all of that. Because... okay, what game is similar to what Starfield really promised? That would be Star Citizen. Which, yeah, we see how that's going. Almost deemed impossible.
Still exactly what we're used to with Bethesda when it comes to its gameplay loop. It's exactly the fucking same. The combat here is literally just Fallout combat but without VATS. And it...
Ah, yeah, that's true. I was trying to figure out if it had VATS or not. Maybe it does later.
Like I said, it is smoother, but it's still just the same goddamn thing. There's not a new crazy amount of depth. There's not a new crazy...
Yeah. Dude, Star Citizen looks beautiful. Like, there's so many things that are amazing about it. Even in VR chat, they remade a lot of the worlds and ships. I actually made a few videos about them. It's just, I don't know... You really don't know what's going on in the heads of those developers after so many years and so much money.
The amount of things that you can do in combat here.
Yeah, dude, I saw posts on Star Citizen forum that were like, dude, I've fully grown up ever since this game started Kickstarter, you know, like all these life events have happened to me. Which is kind of sad.
Here that we haven't already been doing in Bethesda games for over a decade now. Like, it just... They've polished off what they've had for 10 years instead of building what they had for 10 years. Instead of adding cool shit on top of their Bethesda combat formula, they're more than fine to just have the exact same combat, but make it play a little bit better. And again, for a lot of people, that's fine. There's a lot of people out there that don't want any kind of, like, big changes to the combat in Bethesda games or new additions. They're totally fine if they can just deliver the exact same combat.
What's funny about Star Citizen is after all this controversy with Starfield came out, they're all kind of like reassuring themselves that they made the right decision when it's like, dude, some of you spent thousands of dollars on a imaginary spaceship, which, you know, is whatever. I think NFTs and digital goods are definitely going to be a thing. But the game's not out yet, and you're buying like mega ships for all this money when you should be mad at them for not focusing on gameplay.
But without the jankiness. And for those people, Starfield's gonna feel great, because like I said, this is definitely the smoothest gunplay I think Bethesda has had so far. But I would just think, after all of this time, they'd want to do more than that. Like, it's just underwhelming. Like I said, everything in Starfield I think is good. Like, everything is good. There's nothing in here I think is, like, actually shit. There are definitely things I think are a bit weak, but nothing I would actually say is truly bad or awful. It's just this whole package is just so disappointing, because I'm just tired of playing the exact same Bethesda game without anything really changing about it. Even bugs that were present 10 years ago are still present in Starfield. Of course, they're not game-breaking, like, they're very minor things, and for a lot of people the bugs add charm, but come on. Like, it's been over a decade and you still have the same bugs in this game as you did all the way back then? Like, it's just, it shows a complete lack of drive to do something different. They just want to keep delivering the same Bethesda experience. And again, a lot of people want that. I am not one of those people. I wanted more, and I hoped Starfield would be more. So again,
I guess
nothing in it is bad.
To be fair, the marketing did market it that way. And I hate that. Dude, marketing gets so much money compared to actual game developers. Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, the marketing was like the most money that... Like, the marketing was where all the money was thrown at. And everybody was like, man, these games had so much money put into them. And it's like, no, dude, it's just ads. Because unfortunately, that does directly translate into sales. Not really a good game.
If you like Bethesda games, you are no doubt going to like this. But if you wanted more than a Bethesda game, if you wanted Bethesda to be a little more ambitious, you might not be super satisfied. So, this is kind of my review of it. It's not a moist meter, but we are still going to have a moist meter for Starfield. It just won't be done by me. A lot of you might not remember, but Jackson actually does the moist meters with me. We usually talk to each other about how we're feeling about the things we moist meter. And I'm tapping out on Starfield. I don't see myself finishing it. I can't find the motivation to push through the boredom. Jackson is loving it. Jackson is someone who's more than comfortable getting the exact same Bethesda experience and nothing more. So Jackson will do the moist meter. So we can get my perspective entirely here and Jackson's entirely on the moist meter. So that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight with Starfield. That's really about it. See ya.
Dang, dude. So I would say that's probably a negative review, man. After, not even, he didn't get to the 12-hour mark, which is apparently when it gets good, before he even quit. Honestly, I've only played like 4 or 5 hours, and yeah, I love it. But I'm not like in the clouds about it. Ever since Cyberpunk, man, my hype has been demolished. And Cyberpunk has come around. I'm actually very excited for the new DLC coming. September 26th. It's actually even going to change the main game and everything. Like, CD Projekt Red they're redeeming themselves, even though they were amazing and then they weren't, and now maybe they'll be amazing again.